Hi, it's Margaret, and I haven't been around for a couple of weeks because we have been away. And we've obviously returned, and the garden is looking both really good in some cases and really bad in other cases. I mean, downright terrifying in one particular instance. Now, I did look at the long range forecast before I left, thank goodness, because it was supposed to rain almost every day. And so, what I actually did is turned off the drip irrigation. It did end up raining a good chunk of the time we were away. Anyhow, let's get on with the tour and see how the garden has fared. So first, let's look at these dahlias. They have absolutely exploded. Everything really has exploded in the garden because of the rain, including the weeds. But wow, all of these are new to me varieties that I have. I put all of the new tubers that I got in the raised bed so that I would not essentially lose them in the landscape, and so that I could keep track of what I had. Let's take a closer look at all of these. I do have to do a little bit of deadheading, obviously. With all the rain, all of the spent blooms have almost, I mean, they look like they've almost melted. So there is quite a bit of that to do, but wow, there are some beauties in here. While I really love the doubles, these open-faced ones, the pollinators really love them. So I usually have quite a few of them in the garden. While the other ones there are relatively self-supporting, the ones here have kind of tipped over. They're a little bit funky here, and they definitely need some support. I'll have to come in and try to get these staked up, I think. And speaking of dahlias, I did put some seed sown dahlias here on either side of the gate, a little too close to the gate as it turns out, because I have to kind of move them aside every time I open the gate. But there are already a few that I've tagged, like this one right there. This is a spent one, but I don't think it doesn't have any ones that are fully open that haven't passed their prime at the moment. But look at the color on that. The beautiful yellow interior and those light pink petals. So if you look down here, you can see I've tagged that one. I will be saving the tubers from that one. The center of these seed sown dahlias, this one here, is big enough to share. And this one here is another one that I have tagged for saving. And it is a cactus dahlia that as well has a very pale yellow interior with sort of a peachy color on the outside of the petals there. I always plant some normal, quote unquote, marigolds into the raised beds, and these are Colossus Red Gold, and I love them. They are so beautiful. They always give me such a great display. I think that's maybe two plants in there, but a new addition to the marigold collection this year, I have a few, but this is one of them, and this is Orange Gem. And look at how precious these little flowers are. Completely different from the Colossus, and the leaves as well are almost fern-like. So I have a couple of pots with Flotus and nasturtium, and the nasturtium has basically taken over. The Flotus is in there somewhere, right there. I do like it, but the Flotus, that is, I'm not sure if I'm going to grow it next year. I don't know if I like it enough to grow it again. It's beautiful when it comes out, but then it does tend to kind of get a little bit ratty like that. And I don't know, it might also be that I really haven't been deadheading these at all, so that may make a big difference. Here is the shed bed that I showed earlier in the year, and it has a few self-seeders actually in there. There's some cosmos that's come up, but the alyssum is still doing beautifully. And in fact, I see, if you can see here, it has a little visitor. The ageratum has also done really well. However, the celosia I put in here really hasn't done much. If I go around here, this is, I believe, the flamingo pink celosia. It really, yeah, I mean, it hasn't really grown much. This is beautiful here. This Nicotiana, this is Bronze Queen. And in here, I actually just tucked in, I took a cutting of the streptocarpella that I have on my front porch, and I didn't know where to put it, and it actually wasn't doing very well, so I just threw it here and thought, oh, I'll see how it does. And it actually is looking a lot better than it did. So the basket that I have here, I haven't even been deadheading it, obviously, because I've been away, and it's still looking really, really good. So let's move here to the shadier part of the garden. This is a bed that is in the raised bed area, so it's the fenced off area. Before we left, I started to dump some wood chips there because I will be mulching this area, or hopefully I'll be mulching this area with everything else that needs doing now since we've gotten back. I don't know whether that's a high priority at the moment, especially with all the rain we've had, but look at this guy. This is Firelight Tidbit. And I love how it looks with the echinacea there. Beside it is a carex. This is Everlime, and this is actually one that I bought on sale this year, and I think it's the perfect spot for it. Here we have a little bit of Agastache that I grew from seed, and it's doing really well, and it is flowering. This hardy geranium I put in last year, and it started flowering earlier in the summer, and it had a tiny bit of a lull, but now it's coming back again, and I've done nothing to it. I haven't even deadheaded, I haven't cut it back, nothing. So this is a winner, and it is spreading quite well. Last year it was literally, I don't know, maybe 4, 5 inches around, and now it's approaching maybe 24 by 18 inches. There is a lot of cleaning up here because I do love the Nigella seed heads here, but it kind of is making everything look a little bit ratty. So that, for example, I'm going to take out. I'll probably be sprinkling the seeds around in empty spots there though. Oh, you can see here how the geranium's kind of branching out there. One of the pitfalls, of course, of a lot of rain is it also means a lot of slugs. So hostas in particular are very prone to slug damage, some more than others though. This one definitely isn't faring as well. It's Dancing Queen. This is one of my prize purchases this year. I've been looking for it for so long. It's a Rudbeckia and it's called Little Henry. And it is called Little Henry. There is the bigger version, which is called Henry Eilers, which I also have, and I'll show you that in a minute. This one only gets to be about 3 feet tall or so. And I think it's probably at the 2.5 foot mark. As I said, I just bought it this year, so it'll get to be to its full glory in another year or two. Why I love this so much is the gorgeous, gorgeous blooms. The petals are quilled and very, very narrow, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. So I've just moved further along in the bed, and here is Henry Eilers Rudbeckia. Same beautiful quilled Rudbeckia blooms, but humongous. These things, I think that tall one right there is at least 7 feet tall. It is huge. That is 2 plants that I put there. And that was quite a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but they have spread out. I would say they're at least 5 feet all around, maybe more, maybe 6 feet. Beside them is Joe Pieweed, and the pollinators love it. Beside the Henry Eilers Rudbeckia, I have the false sunflower, and it needs deadheading badly. And it's just not because it doesn't look that great when it's not deadheaded. It's also because this guy self-seeds like crazy. In fact, it self-seeds so much that I really, really like it. It has a long blooming period. In fact, if I had deadheaded it sooner, it would probably still be blooming a lot more than it is now. The thing is, I'm not really sure whether I want that kind of maintenance, meaning that if I do go away and I don't get deadheading, do I really want to have that added maintenance the following year of having to weed out like thousands and thousands of seedlings? Right now, it's not so bad, but I can see in the future, this may be one that I will end up replacing. I may even put more of the Henry Eilers here because it is very similar, although the Heliopsis does bloom a lot sooner than the Rudbeckia. Here is a little update. Somebody actually asked me on the short that I did on trimming back the silver mound artemisia. Well, how did it do? Did it start to splay? How did the Chelsea chop work out? And as you can see, it worked out really, really well. With all the rain, it would definitely, absolutely have started to splay weeks ago. And here we are, and it is still looking like a beautiful little mound. So I am very, very happy with that, and definitely I will be doing that in the future. Now, the sedum beside it, and this is, I believe, cherry tart. Not so much. This one definitely splayed apart here, even though it is a relatively short sedum. It is not a tall variety, but it is splayed wide open. The chocolate Joe Pye weed right there in the middle is looking amazing, but the veronicastrum, it has fallen over. Normally, I don't have that much of a problem with it falling over, but once again, the rain, I think, and it grew quite tall, and I guess the stems are not as strong. Actually, I see this stem here, way back there, it actually broke. It kind of flopped over there and broke, so the pollinators love veronicastrum. And now, though, all the blooms are spent, so that definitely has to be deadheaded. Here is a Stokes aster that is new to the garden this year. I bought two of them last year, a purple one and a white one. The white one bloomed, I'd say 2-3 weeks earlier than the purple one, and it is totally done now. This one is still going. I like it, but I don't know. I mean, the blooms are pretty. I don't know. I'm just not sure I like this kind of, I don't know. The jury is out. The jury is out on this one. I have to deadhead all of the lavender here. It is all done, basically. And I mean, I probably should have done this before I went away, but that's okay. That achillea right there, all of the white, that's marshmallow achillea. Once again, there was a big flush of blooms earlier in the season, and now I'm getting more blooms, even though I haven't deadheaded the ones that were there already. So it's looking kind of a little bit ratty there, but I will be going in there and cleaning that up as well. Behind that is, I mean, that gloriousness there is the little spire Perovskia, and it is a shorter version of Russian sage. It generally, I think, only gets to about 3 feet tall. I think it's a little bit taller than that. I think it's pushing 4 feet tall right now. One of my favorites that I've added to the garden in the last couple of years is Gara. And here, let me just go in a little bit. This one is a variegated variety. So if I go down there, you can kind of see on the leaves, it's very light variegation just along the edges. But those blooms, I mean, are beautiful as well. Over here I have Dark Towers penstemon, and it has opened up in the middle, and I don't think it's done this before, and I'm thinking it is because of the rain. One of the things I love about Dark Towers, obviously, is the beautiful color, but look at these gorgeous seed pods as well. Now, what I have found, though, is that with these gorgeous seed pods comes viable seed, and this guy self-seeded all over the place. Up until now, I've just left the seed pods and then cut the whole thing back the next year, but this year I'm actually going to be cutting those seed pods off before they split open. Here is one of my favorite late summer flowering perennials, and it is Helenium. So here we have just a jumble of things that I planted. We have some celosia back there that has done really, really well. I have a bunch of ageratum that's also done really well. And behind that, I have some feverfew. And in this bed, I sowed just the normal feverfew, the singles, as well as here I have the doubles. This is going to look amazing after a little bit of deadheading. Beside it, also needing a bad case of deadheading, is some dianthus. These are cottage pinks, and they as well are still flowering amongst all of these seed heads. I might even collect seeds, I think, from this year. The fact that they are still flowering now is amazing because they started flowering several months ago. I have quite a few hydrangeas, and unfortunately, a lot of them are doing this. Again, because I think they just got too much water. Normally, they don't flop like this, so that's my best guess. And one of the things I love about swamp milkweed, of course, it draws the pollinators, but then you get these awesome pods at the end of the season too. Really gives some nice structure. And look at them, they're standing beautifully tall here. Look at the size of this hollyhock. This is a hollyhock that's going to bloom next year. Look at how huge it is. It's amazing. And this right here, that is a seven sunflower. And the show on this is going to be incredible. I do have to give it a good prune, I think, this year, but or this winter. There are a lot of branches kind of lying on the ground, but look at all the buds on that. That is going to be quite the show when it flowers. And in fact, it is just on the cusp of flowering. I do see a few flowers. If you come down here, there are a few flowers already coming out. So here is the perennial bed that I have all the plants I grew from seed in. I have not yet transplanted them. It's definitely on the to-do list after I clean up the mess that's in the beds right now from being away. Everything is looking great, a little too great actually, because the Rudbeckia specifically has definitely outgrown its spot and is kind of leaning over other plants. In fact, what I'm thinking I might do is cut them back. I'm hoping all of these come back. Some of these were listed as biennial. I'm not really sure whether they'll come back or not because sometimes they were listed as both perennials and biennials on the web. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is cutting them all the way down to the bottom leaves more or less, and then transplanting those bottom leaves into their new home, and hopefully they come back. This Nepeta has been blooming for weeks now. Super impressed. This is Pink Panther. Here's Goldilocks, Rudbeckia. This is a super, super pretty one. It has all of the petals, but it still has that open cone there. And here is Chimchimney. I'm really liking it too. It sort of reminds me of Henry Eilers with the quilled petals there. It's beautiful. I hope this one comes back. Again, I saw varying descriptions online as to whether or not this one would be one that would come back as a perennial or not. So here are a bunch of asters that I grew from seed, and again, lots of deadheading needed here, but I just wanted to quickly show you my favorite one, and it's this guy, and it's a small aster, but look at that. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is just like what the seed packet showed. So in here we have just a variety of other asters. We have giant perfection mix. We have a blend, like a China aster blend. Another variety called Janina. I also have what looks like a regular daisy here, but this might be out of the mix as well. And then beside that, we have a bunch of zinnias. This one is Queenie Lime Red, and it's definitely up there in terms of one of my favorite varieties. Here's another marigold that I grew. This one is one that I normally don't grow, but I received it as a trial packet. And so I thought I would give it a shot. And it is beautiful. I mean, the ruffles are absolutely gorgeous. And that bee is like trying to really get in there. I don't know if it'll be able to do it. I mean, those ruffles are really packed, but I guess it senses there's something good down there. So this one is a pretty big marigold. This one is probably about 2 feet tall, which is definitely one of the taller marigolds that I have. This year I put the black-eyed Susan vine on this kind of trellis, and it's done okay. Not as good as it did last year when I had it in the pot. Not exactly sure what the story is, but it's finally taking off a bit. It took a long time this year compared to last. So here are a bunch of echinacea. These are all started from seed. This is cyan spirit. And there's been, I think, a little bit of nibbling from the Japanese beetles. And further down is some more cyan spirit. And if you know this particular variety of echinacea, it does come in all different colors. Here's a Weigela that's in our front yard. Have no idea what the variety is. It was here when we moved in, and it's very strange. I don't know if I've ever noticed this before, but it is blooming. Look at this guy here. It's blooming sporadically, mind you. I mean, it's not a lot of blooms, but I don't get it in August. Not to say that it hasn't happened before. Maybe I've just never noticed, but I find it strange that in all the years we've lived here, I never would have noticed that. This guy is like not moving. Oh, I do see here this. So when you have a variegated shrub like this, if you see something coming out like this, so it's just plain green, you have to cut it off. Otherwise, it might start to take over the shrub and it'll just all revert back. So I see that one. I also see another one down here that oh, actually it's all the same branch now that I see it. So yeah, so this will have to be trimmed off. So now let's just take a very quick peek at a few things in the vegetable garden. The peppers are doing really well. I mean, it's not surprising with all the heat and the moisture. This is a new to me variety. It's called Pekino, and I believe there's Pekino red, Pekino yellow, and Pekino orange. This one is Pekino red, and look how cute those are. I have a few I can see here that have actually turned color that I will be picking. Very cute. This is my first time growing these, so look at this guy. This is Sugar Rush Peach. I mean, this is one plant. I don't know how many peppers are on there, but it's a lot. It is a lot. I had a whole stand of peas here. They have basically turned over. I mean, they're way too far gone. These are snow peas, and they're way too far gone, I think, to eat. They would not be very sweet at this point. They'd get a little bit starchy, so all of this has to be pulled out, but it was actually a really good run of peas this year. Beside that, I also put in a bunch of provider beans, and I think these are actually perfect for picking. So I'll have to come out this evening and pick those. Again, really good harvest of beans this year, so I'm quite happy. And I only planted a relatively small spot. This was, I don't know, I think a 2x4 spot maybe, or a 2x3 spot. And I got a ton of beans out of it. And I think in future, I used to plant a lot more than this. In future, I think this will definitely be good. Okay, the cucumbers. So now we get to some of the ugly. The cucumber vines are basically done. The rain has done them in. I mean, I have a ton of big cucumbers. When they get to be this size, they're still good, usually. The varieties that I grow don't really get bitter when they get larger like that, but you do have to peel them and remove the seed cavity, which does get quite large. But yeah, I think Cucumbers are done for the year. Unfortunately, quite a few things in the vegetable garden do not appreciate constant wet weather, and cucumbers is one of them. And beside here, another one that is probably on its last legs as well. You can see the powdery mildew on the leaves here. And this is the climbing zucchini escalator. Incredible escalator. I've harvested quite a few zucchini. In fact, when we got home, the very same day I came out here, because I knew there would be a couple of monster zucchini on here, and there were. I do have a baby zucchini here that's growing, but I'm not really sure that I will be getting much more. The kale is doing really, really well. One thing I have noticed lately about kale in the last couple of years is that I haven't really had as much trouble with the cabbage white butterfly as I have in the past. This year I didn't do anything. I didn't cover the bed, I didn't put BT, I didn't do anything. And I mean, the damage on this is minimal. These leaves are gorgeous. This needs to have a lot of harvesting done to it though. I need to harvest and preserve. This is one of my favorite vegetables to blanch and then freeze, and then I have it all winter long in little packets all ready to go. Beside them, I have the Brussels sprouts, and they are doing pretty well. So they're still small. This year I only planted 2. I have Jade Cross and Speedia. Only 2 plants because last year I harvested a ton of Brussels sprouts from 4 or 5 plants, and I definitely don't need that much. The one thing that I'm kind of wondering about is they seem really short still compared to last year. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. So that's a little bit of a head scratcher. I don't know. I think by this time they were taller. I'll have to look at footage from last year, but anyhow, I will definitely get quite a few sprouts from these. Definitely enough for at least 2 or 3 meals, I'm thinking. So that's good. Next is broccoli, and well, we have here this one. Yeah, I can harvest this little guy here. It's a little bit open, but I mean, it'll still taste delicious. But the bees are loving these flowers so much that I'm actually thinking I might just leave this. They're going a little bit crazy in there. I do have some side shoots growing on these. These I've been harvesting from pretty regularly, so I'm not surprised there's not a ton on here. I think I harvested just before we left, so. Now, one thing I did want to give an update on is this. This is the Chinese pink celery that I grew from seed this year. And you know what? I'm actually seeing it's starting to bolt, which I'm thinking is not a good sign for celery. I've never grown celery before, so I'm not really sure what to expect. The stalks are not big at all. I mean, pencil size, and that's being generous. So I have not tried it yet. In fact, you know what? I'm going to take a bit off, okay? It's not overly tender. Oh, yeah. This is very strong and very stringy. Not from lack of moisture, but this is also my other theory. These seedlings went through quite a bit of trauma at the seedling stage because the cell packs I had them in, I guess they really sucked up the water because they would constantly be drying out. That can affect a vegetable or any other plant for that matter as it grows, like having that kind of stress when it's young. So I'm wondering if that potentially affected how it's grown. So I'm not going to write this off right away. Definitely, I would not use this in a salad from the way it is. It definitely is a little too stringy, but I'm thinking in kind of a soup base or something like that where you want that celery flavor, but you don't keep the actual celery stalks in, you take them out afterwards. That would be a good use for this, but otherwise it was a good experiment, and I probably will try it again next year, knowing that I have to use larger pots and really keep an eye on those seedlings as I'm growing them. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is this, and boy, This is the downright scary part of the tour. These are the tomatoes. And when I said that some crops do not like a lot of moisture, well, tomatoes are right at the top of the list. Unfortunately, my tomatoes were struck with late blight. And what does late blight look like? Well, let's take a look. So see how these stems have these dark lesions in them? That is an indicator that we're talking about late blight. And look at these tomatoes here. They are essentially mummified. Before I left, I really didn't see that much of an indication of anything. Some of the leaves were turning brown, that kind of thing, but I mean, that does happen. I did not see any indications of late blight before I left, but as I said, there has been a ton of rain, and these kind of diseases sometimes come up really quickly. And I think that my tomato bed will probably be pulled out this year a lot sooner than normal. A few animals have also been in here. Oh, I see another tomato here that's fallen down with a bite taken out. It is just not good. Here is another tomato, and you can see that is classic late blight. And there's nothing you can do about it. I could prune these to high heaven and it would just continue attacking the plants. At this point, I'm better off just saving what I can. Some plants are obviously affected more than others. This one here, what is this? Artisan tiger stripes is not doing, I mean, look at the foliage on this. This is like ridiculously bad. And a few of them are not doing as bad, but I mean, once it's out here, it's pretty much game over. So I think what I probably will do is I'm going to pull all of the tomatoes out, which is such a shame. I was growing some that I had never grown before and that I'm super excited about. Look at this guy here. Look how beautiful that is. That one I am going to actually pull tonight. This is the bread and salt tomato. But wow, the Amos coli are pretty much kaput, it looks like. I think there's a few over there, but they are attached to blight-stricken stems. So you win some, you lose some, right? I haven't had late blight in the garden for many years. In fact, I think it's been 5, 6 years, something like that, since I had it in the garden. So I'm gonna have to be very careful. Like all the straw that you see down here, normally I save the straw, but if there's any type of disease in the tomato bed, that straw goes out in the trash. I do not save it. I don't want it anywhere else in the garden. So yeah, what a shame. Let's take one quick peek at everything I have growing here because this is going to be coming out probably in the next couple of days. It is definitely a high priority on my to-do list. So here we have striped Roman. This one here, the huge one, is Chef's Choice. I'm hoping this one ends up ripening, but I may leave that one. I'm thinking I don't see any stem lesions yet on that plant. So this one I may just end up leaving to see. I'll get rid of all the diseased leaves and see if I can get it to at least start ripening, because right now it is so green that I don't think there's any possibility if I picked it now that it would ripen. This one is also Chef's Choice. This one is Purple Zebra. This one here, I don't see a tag, but I think it's Amos coli. Oh, that just fell right off. So this is Amos coli. It's one of my favorite paste tomatoes, and normally it actually gets quite large. This one here is Chico 3. Again, we can see blight starting on that. I don't think I'm going to be able to save any of these, and this is usually one of my most productive varieties. And since I'm standing here, I just wanted to give a shout out here to the Emerald Towers basil. Look how amazing it's looking. It's bushy, it's compact, it really does live up to the name, and it hasn't started flowering yet, and I've done nothing to this. These are 3 plants here. So if I go like that, you can see its leaves all the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. Beautiful. Definitely on the repeat grow list. And last year, this plant was glorious. This year, again, it is absolutely horrible because of the rain, and this is Riesentraub. It looks like I am going to be able to pick some tomatoes off of here, but again, I think this shrub is coming out because it is in quite severe decline. Look at that. And that about does it. There is a ton of work to do, obviously. I mean, I may even do a little video, like a time lapse or something like that. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today, and we will see you next time. Bye.